Hi, I am Sri Lakshmi, working as Assistant Professor in CSE Department, Gokra's Rangaraja Institute of Engineering and Technology. In this presentation, I am going to explain about the conceptual design using the ER model. We have already seen how the ER diagrams are represented. We cannot say that the ER model is always correct based upon the entities, relationships, and attributes which we are designing. And there is a particular method for deciding how the ER model should be drawn. So what are the design choices for the ER model are whether a given concept can be modeled as an entity or an attribute, whether a concept can be modeled as an entity or a relationship, and whether the relationships can be expressed in terms of binary, ternary, or aggregation. All the design choices should be properly taken care while drawing the ER diagrams. Sometimes we need to take constraints also into consideration because lot of data semantics need to be captured, and sometimes some constraints cannot be captured in the ER diagrams. Therefore, we need to further refine the schema sometimes because it may not satisfy the need of the conceptual design. Sometimes we are given the address of the employee, the attribute, the address of the employee. Then we need to consider whether it can be represented as an entity or attribute. Suppose if the address is having city, street, and country, then it is not atomic. In such cases, it cannot be an attribute because an attribute should also always be atomic. Therefore, the address of an employee can be only entity. Such type of decision should be properly taken care while designing the conceptual model of the ER models. In this example, we can see here employees entity with social security number, name and lot, department entity with department ID, department name and budget. Worksin is the relationship. So I already explained in my previous videos, the entities are always represented in rectangles, attributes are always represented by means of ellipses, and the relationships are represented by means of rhombus or diamond. And the underlined attribute is called as a primary key. We can see in employees and departments, SSN is the primary key and DID is the primary key. And what else? We know all the remaining things like entities, attributes and relationships. Now, here worksin is having two attributes like from and to. These are called descriptive attributes. So here the worksin cannot allow more than one values for from and to. In such cases, we can solve the problem by this way. Worksin with another entity duration where we maintain from and to values in the duration entity. In this way, we can address this issue. Next one is, here we have employees entity, departments entity. Similarly, like earlier slide we have, employees are having different attributes, departments are having DID, DNAME and budget, managers too is a relationship with attributes since, DBudget, DID. Here also, DBudget, suppose DBudget if it is having same values for number of records, then this diagram will fail. In such cases, we will go for such type of ER diagram, like we will have a separate entity for manager and we maintain since, DBudget and number. This is the primary key. So in this way, we cannot, if a manager gets a separate discretionary budget for each department, then we cannot cover all the managed departments here. Redundancy is occurring in the first ER diagram. In such cases, we will be solving our problem by redrawing the ER diagram in this way. Sometimes we will be looking at binary versus ternary relationships. So now in this case, employees, dependents covers policies with policy ID and cost. Here, sometimes we cannot have more than one similar policies. This is a bad design. In such cases, what we do? We will have more than one relationships here. There are two types of relationships here: purchaser and beneficiary. Here we have only one relationship. We may sometimes need to use ternary relationships like purchaser and beneficiary in this diagram. So in this diagram, we can observe that employees and policies are relation by they are maintaining a relationship with purchaser, and policies and dependents are given by relationship beneficiary. This is a better design when compared to this type of design. In this way, the binary relationships are converted sometimes into ternary relationships. Now, the relationships, as we have seen in the previous slide, can be converted into tables like this. Create table policies with policy ID, cost, SSN, primary key, and what is the foreign key. Like this, the entire table, the entire ER diagram, we can convert it in the form of a table like this. So policy ID is the primary key here. Then SSN is the foreign key for the policies table. Policies table, SSN is the foreign key in this diagram. Another table is dependents table. So in the dependents table, if you observe in this diagram, we have P name, age, policy ID, P name, age, and policy ID. So policy ID, then what are the primary keys? P name and the policy ID are the primary keys. And what is the foreign key referring? Policies only. Policy ID is referring the policies. In this way, we can represent the binary and the ternary relationships in the form of tables in the SQL. So sometimes we may have constraints beyond the ER model also. We may not cover them in the ER models. Like we have seen in the previous examples, the binary, ternary relationships, they can be converted into tables. For better designs, we are converting binary relationships into ternary relationships, and sometimes total participation, partial participation also can be represented in the ER model. So by providing good design principles, we can draw ER model efficiently. There may be case sometimes we may not represent the ER model also. They are represented by means of functional dependencies. What is the functional dependency? We have normalization in database management system, which means that certain rules should be followed while designing the database. In this example, a department cannot order two distinct parts from the same supplier. This cannot be expressed by means of the ternary relationship. Therefore, normalization should be done by taking into consideration the functional dependencies. So the functional dependencies we will be looking into in the fourth chapter in database management system. Then even we can consider certain special dependencies also in the ER diagram. So they are also such cases also cannot be covered in the ER model. There may be also some general constraints like manager's discretionary budget less than 10% of the combined budget of all departments he or she manages. Such type of the requirements also cannot be represented by means of the ER diagrams. In such cases, we will be using a better representations. So functional dependencies we will be using, and some other representations also we will go for while designing the ER model. So in this way, the conceptual design is providing the high level description of data, and ER model is of course the better popular for conceptual design we will be doing. And here the basic constructs will be entities, relationships and attributes, and some additional constructs also we can do: weak entities, easy hierarchies and aggregations. However, there are some variations also on the ER model. Thank you. With this I am ending my presentation.